Dr. Sternglass knew the risk. A silent war, invisible twist. From the fallout clouds to the gamma rays, he saw the truth in a poisoned haze. They laughed him off.
Hello everybody,
they
welcome
turned away.
back.
But the radiation never fades
Dana,
away.
you can call in at these shows.
Dr. Sternglass, can you hear us now?
Everybody's
We
doing
ignore
well.
the warnings, don't know how. We breathe it in, it's in the breeze. The slow decay brings us to our knees. In the quiet
And away we go. Hope you're doing, had a great night, a great day today. So we got a poll tonight. Here's that poll too, Dana. Here it comes. We'll get there. Is United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on Earth and the 8 million species? It always takes me a minute to get up and rolling because I'm slow, among other things. We're almost there though. I think that there's a reckoning coming down the road. So we're going to cover headlines from the 18th. Forgot to turn the light on there. From the 18th of March 2011, and it happens to be the 18th of March 2025. This was 14 years gone by. So this story is long been faded from everybody's memories except for the very, very hardcores. But the apologists have all faded this from their memories, I can assure you. You'll meet quite a few of them tonight. Suicide Squad mans Japan's nuclear plant. Suicide Squad. And they show you these incredibly grainy pictures always from back in 14 years ago. Just no excuse not to have a decent quality picture, was it? Personnel attempting to cool down Japan's stricken nuclear plant, there's that word again, have been dubbed a suicide squad, with their families accepting their fate like a death sentence. Did they interview these people, I wonder? Did he interview the families? How can they make a statement like that without doing the things they're supposed to do? That's a good question, maybe. You can't stop reactors from melting down that had already melted down by the 16th. So on the 18th, how are you supposed to stop it 2 days after they melted down? How does that work? The newspaper called a police team Kashitas, meaning a unit that expects to die. It was over 300 police officers died. And what were police officers doing at a nuclear meltdown anyway? Isn't that where we should sacrifice 10 or 20,000 nuclear experts? Why are we sacrificing good people like police officers? Why not get rid of the scourge of the earth like nuclear scientists and nuclear academics? They're a burden to every species, right? They have no usefulness. All they are is they just destroy all the species. That truck, by the way, is the police and firemen. Firemen who don't know nothing about nuclear meltdowns. Police officers who know nothing about nuclear meltdowns. Spraying water on a building that's already gone so that the nuclear industry can look good. Losing their lives so the nuclear industry stocks don't dive too much. That's what that was all about. There have been explosions at 3 reactors. There's actually 4 reactors. Just because you don't have a video of reactor 4 exploding, clearly the footage shows that it exploded. Engulfed. And this is one of the problem where your media is your enemy for some reason. They hate your guts for some reason. This is not an opinion or a conjecture. This is a fact. Sparking fears of a nuclear meltdown. So you had explosions and fires at a fort building. These are nuclear buildings. It's unprecedented, and it only gets a sentence. By the way, did you see the water reaching the reactors? They're completely ineffective. The reactors, typically each of them, not sites, but each reactor would need 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks for water, basically, is the best way to look at it for the average person who can't appreciate volume. So imagine 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks with 2,200 pounds of water, 1,000 liters of water in the back of it, going past your front door every single minute. 4,500 trucks. These hoses are only good for about 200 tons a day or so. Experts have been working around the clock. Reactors need 1 million gallons, 4,500 tons each minute. Experts. It's like the worst thing you can hear when you're talking about nuclear, unfortunately. Experts have been working around the clock to cool the reactors, and giant helicopters have been used to dump giant helicopters. My, oh my, oh my, how articulated. Have been used to dump water over them. Of course, that doesn't work. I'll play a Harvard video later. 20 people have been confirmed to have... all 600 helicopter pilots died at Chernobyl, which is just 1/3600th of what Fukushima was. 20 people have been confirmed to have suffered from radiation exposure. 20 people suffered radiation exposure in their paper suits, did they? There are about 180 personnel working around the clock to cool the plant. This is on the 18th. Don't forget that. These stories are from the 18th. Some of them might be the 17th. Just they ended up in the pile, and I was like, well, I can't ignore the story. It's in the same frame. There are about, and you'll see why I kept it. There are about 180 personnel working around the clock to cool the plant, working in rotating teams of 50. They enter the radiation hotspots for 15 minutes at a time to limit their exposure. Now, a tsunami ran through these places. I mean, it ran through it at around 400 miles per hour. Citing Japanese broadcaster NHK DPA reported that 7 military fire trucks sprayed 50 tons of water on the full fuel storage pool at number 3 on Friday. The water didn't reach the reactors. The temperatures are so hot, it atomized an aerosol and ionized and radiated the water before it actually can touch anything. And at Reactor 3, the fuel pools and the reactor cores are clearly gone. You'll see in the next picture after this one. The fuel storage pool at Reactor 3 on Friday. Steam was seen rising from the damaged buildings, an indication that the water was reaching the overheated fuel rods. No, the steam was rising because you had 9 reactor cores melted down. You didn't need water. It wasn't steam. This was lethal, catastrophic radiation. If you were swinging like Tarzan through that plume, you died when you came out the other side. Because there was so much gamma shines, neutrons, and betas and alpha rays and X-rays as you went past the building. By the time you hit the smoke, you would have let go of the rope. Cooling systems at the reactors failed after the electrical system was knocked out in the disaster. Well, an electrical system wasn't just knocked out, it was torn off the walls, torn out of the buildings, etc., etc. It was a tsunami ran through the building. I'm on YouTube. I apologize for that. But give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. No matter how you look at nuclear, it's going to wipe out everything anyway, right? It doesn't need a nuclear war to wipe out the species. You just need radioactive fallout. And it's time you started voicing your concern. It's a good time to voice your concern. These are creatures. These are cowards on top of it. But the pro-nuclear community, for some reason, hates every species' guts. That's one of them do. They hide away thinking that they're almighties. But they can't have a debate with any of them because they can't win a debate. They can't face the public either on top of that. And so they indoctrinate your loved ones and your children and yourselves with stuff like Spider-Man, the Hulk, all the superheroes, whatever you want to come up with. It's all connected to the nuclear industry, isn't it? You know how deadly Krypton is to you or your loved ones or your children? It's a real isotope, right? And it's not of something good, it's something bad. They have all these superheroes to replace grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and moms and dads, to the point where the word hero doesn't even exist anymore. You got the guitar hero or GoPro hero, guitar hero. And they've diluted the word so it doesn't even exist. Many people can be heroes as fictional cartoon characters, right? Remember when we used to get rid of our problem? Remember those days where we used to get rid of our problem? We dealt with our problems. And now what do we have? We have a body count from the radiation of 80 years wrecking the entire planet. Around 30 Tokyo Fire Department tankers. Where's the nuclear scientists? Where's the nuclear academics? Where's the nuclear companies? Where's the nuclear employees? Where is the nuclear students, the nuclear professors? Where are the nuclear heroes? There is no such thing as a nuclear hero, though, is there? Homer is your nuclear hero, right? Because you don't have a real nuclear hero. You don't have a nuclear hero anywhere on the planet that the world can relate to, because you can't relate to anything nuclear. It's always wrapped up in this clean package so that there's nothing can tarnish the industry. There's nothing allowed to disavow the industry. You're not allowed to criticize the industry. That's not only frowned upon, that's considered an attack. And every nuclear academic on the planet should attack you if you're part of that industry. And the body count now for every species is catastrophic. You know, there was a day when we used to get rid of our problems. We just dealt with it, and that was it. Those days needs to come back. We got to deal with our problems. And nuclear is a problem, I can tell you that much. And you're the solution. Get educated and don't take it lying down ever again, right? Hold this industry accountable so your children and your friends, your families, the species can have some kind of a future. They've wrecked it, but we need to try to claw back something. Fuel storage pool was failing. Water levels in the fuel storage pool were failing. Fuel storage pool was falling, water levels. When you look at these buildings, you're left with the conclusion that there is no fuel pools, there is no reactor cores, there is no heroes. There will never be a hero in the nuclear industry. And so they put people like Bill Gates up on a pedestal and Elon Musk, well, not anymore, but anybody that's a billionaire, that's who they put on a pedestal as a hero. And Spider-Man and the Hulk and the other caricatures that they co-opted for this horrible, terrible, just hateful industry. Throughout Thursday, Army helicopters continue to pour water over the reactors. Well, that's not true now, is it? I'll show you more about that coming up. The heroes, unfortunately, were the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants that don't speak the language. The heralds. The heralds. So I had a poll there tonight, by the way. Let me come back to that for a second. Will it be legal to keep nuclear scientists as pets in cages in the near future? You know, the first question answer I was going to put there, will it be required, not just legal, but required to spit on a nuclear scientist whenever you see one? Will you be required legally in the near future to do that? Because if the world wakes up and sees what this industry's got done, they'll probably put them in cages on street corners so people can go there and yell at them during their lunch hours. I think that would be the best solution, actually. A nuclear scientist is not something you want your loved ones to grow up to be. That's a fact. But NHK said the plan had to be abandoned because the chopper pilots were exposed to gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas and x-rays from the stricken complex. If I hear the word stricken, it's like hearing the word leak. It just infuriates me. Because at this point, the reactors have all blown up on March the 18th. The pictures... And let me just give you that example real quick before I... before I lose my mind. Just kidding you. Let me see that one, for instance. And this one. So on March the 18th, this picture, by the way, was taken on the 16th. This was handed out on the 16th. Same as this picture here. That was handed out on the 16th of March. And so all the media, in other words, had that picture on the 16th of March. So, like, there was no way that a journalist, incredibly smart, unbelievably talented journalist, didn't know that these reactors were completely lost. There was no way that these unbelievably smart, very, very smart, M-A-R-T, smart, university-educated journalists, there's no way they didn't know the reactors were gone. They weren't getting paid to tell you the truth. They were getting paid to put you in harm's way. So their children can have a tuition for their colleges paid for. So their children can have nice teeth. And so their children can go to the best universities. And so they can hold cocktail parties and pretend to all their loved ones that they're special. They sold out you on the drop of a hat. On the drop of a hat. France advised the citizens leave Tokyo. Britain, Ireland, and others recommended its nationals to reconsider traveling to the capital, Tokyo. 36 million people, because it was unbelievably Dan and Asana tried to answer somebody who doesn't see it. What's that all about? I like controversies. Let me go check it out. I answered your Pullman, but I don't see it. You're being throttled here by your team? What are you talking about? If he's being throttled in your comment, you'll see it. Dana removed it, or Dana Nasana removed it. You'll actually see it on the inside here if you were being throttled. You got a lot of comments. I don't think you're being throttled. But YouTube has an absurd amount of censorship. The nuclear industry has an absurd amount of I don't see any comments redacted. Just the one comment down earlier. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. So I didn't see any comments from Dana. Now, if you say something, YouTube might just not post it, right? There's certain keywords YouTube might have. Maybe we're all being throttled is more like it, yeah. Yeah, well, like, Dana Nasana is actually an incredible soul. He's an amazing person. It'll take a lot before Dana throttles you. I can tell you that much. I don't know if I've ever seen him do it, actually, all these years. It takes a lot less for me to throttle, you know. I got zero tolerance. I've been at it for too long. I'm not going to have anybody crawling under my skin for more than a few seconds. If it's a legitimate question, I'll answer it, right? I'll address it. But if it's just a troll, and we know what a troll is these days. But if a comment gets removed by me or Dana Nasana, because I'm on the inside, you'll actually see the name. Dana Nasana removed his comment, or Dana Durnford, or the environmentalist Dana Durnford removed his comment. It'll actually say that during the comment. If I click on it, I can open the comment up and read it. In all honesty, I don't know if I've ever seen Dana take someone's comment down. What's wrong with you, Dana? He's doing his thing, but I don't tell. By the way, I don't tell Dana Nasana what to do or how to moderate or any kind of comments. He does. I wouldn't have to tell someone. Like if there, Dana is not no slouch. He knows the difference. He's been around a long time. That's a very long time, actually. As long as I can remember, for goodness sakes. I've never seen him say anything bad about a single person. Unlike Dana, this guy here, me. I've said a few natty things. Recommended as nationals from Britain, Ireland, and other countries, others like Canada, United States, or everywhere else. Don't go to the nuclear wasteland, Tokyo. Experts said the levels of radiation detected in Tokyo were not harmful to human health, but thousands of foreigners have put their families on trains to other parts of the countries or on planes to Asia, Europe, and America. Journalists did too, of course. Because the reality of it was highly radioactive glass rained on Tokyo. We got so many. Like, I can march you right across the country with documentation of millions per square meter of anthropogenic man-made atoms from the nuclear meltdowns, radioactive fallout. I think this one kind of really it's indisputable, right? It's unassailable. Nuclear fuel with 500 trillion atoms. So a BQ is a pulse of energy, and there's a BQ every second from an atom. And so you got 500 trillion atoms. It's like, take the worst snowstorm you ever seen and multiply it by 10. Instead of snowflakes, is atoms. And there's no way you can't breathe it in. And that's why there was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. And not everybody got health care, not everybody was diagnosed. And cancer is the only illness or disease or autoimmune deficiency or injury or illness is going to manifest, right? Cancer is just one of many. They're usually latent. So in the first year, there was 865,000 extra cancers. A spike, we might say. 500 trillion atoms a kilogram in Tokyo. Significant consequences for human health, birds, bees, whales, you name it. This exodus, however, was in sharp contrast with the determination of millions of Japanese citizens. It wasn't determination. They were told by the media and the government that they were safe. What a worm to write it, to frame the narrative that way. But that's the journalist. That's what you get, right? A journalist is a worm with bones. Is Japan reactor crew exposed to fatal radiation? And so whenever you see these people in their paper suits and their ineffective Geiger counters, they're only looking for gamma, by the way. But those things would have been broken right away. They would have hit high numbers. And the people that are using it don't even know, never seen one before. These were volunteers. These weren't academics or scientists. There was no record kept of what they were doing there. Think about this headline. This was the official 311 notebook, concerned that half of Japan to be covered in nuclear waste. Not nuclear folly, but nuclear waste. 60 and older should be prepared to die at the disease factory. Fire out of control at Reactor 4. That's some headlines. 60 and older should be prepared to die. 60 and older should be prepared to die at your power plant because it broke down. Do you know of any other power plant that has those particular attributes? Well, we end up in a lot of different... These videos end up on a lot of different sites. It's not just YouTube. YouTube's very important, though. It's the best platform. It's formatted for every device out there. And it's free. Video is very expensive to do anywhere else. BitChute wants $600 a year. So anybody can put up any propaganda they want. On BitChute, you just got to have $600 and you're on the front page. Those 60 and older should be prepared to die at Fukushima plant. So why bother checking for radiation? They just send her in the Reactor 4, sure. By Charles Choi. It's going to be a tough name to grow up with. An emergency crew attempts to prevent a catastrophic meltdown at Japan's Fukushima. Like, how are you going to prevent a catastrophic meltdown 2 days after you already had a catastrophic meltdown? This picture was released on the 15th. This is a handout for March the 15th, 3 days before the stories I'm reading you right now. And it's showing you 4 melter reactors in a row with 8 fuel pools at the top of each of the buildings. Just 36 reactor cores were gone. So the journalists didn't write these stories. That's the one thing we know. Written by the degenerate International Atomic Energy and the World Nuclear Association, lobbying groups for nuclear industry, and then given to the media, the so-called media. And this is the situation worse than 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl. See, they had this picture 3 days before they wrote the story. Everybody would have seen that picture. Right, to invoke, and you've seen this constantly, invoking Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, right, to confuse the people that are stupid enough to read their stories or watch their medias. That's why you got to walk away from media. You got to walk away from media. We just cover it just to show you the lies. It's a brutal job. This is a brutal job. It's a very frustrating job to read the lies every day. Then you got to wait till 10 p.m. my time and start telling the story, right? So I'm consumed all day by this stuff, and all evening, and then there is no downtime for me. It's a frantic pace right up until I do the show at 10 p.m. and hopefully it runs till midnight, which is 2 hours. But it's very late in the day for me, right? I'm exhausted at this point of the day, but I've been at this the entire day, and I'm so upset. I know this afternoon around 3 o'clock, I was so upset. I was going to do a show and just bring the computer in as I'm grabbing the stories and just walk you through it for 4 or 5 hours. Just so you could just see that frustration that comes with this. And like I put it's very unusual when you stick a question under the poll. I took it down, but the question was, will it be legal in the near future to keep a nuclear scientist like a pet in a cage? The reason those connotations are there is because of frustration, right? That it should be illegal. Once you become a journalist or a nuclear scientist, it should be illegal to be classified as a human. You're no longer a human. Now you're a monster. You're an official monster. And you should have like a big... You should have to dye your hair yellow so everybody knows you're a scumbag or something. And if police catch you with it, they should have to stop you on the side of the road and dye your hair. On Tuesday, for example, apparent crack in one of the nuclear plant's 4 compromised reactors likely resulted in a puff release. Oh, this was Kathryn Higley. One of the worst humans we've ever come across. Ew, Kathryn Higley. So Kathryn Higley is an incredibly educated person. A puff release, perhaps of radioactive steam, said the health physicist Kathryn Higley. She knows all these pictures, same as you're seeing them. Kathryn Higley. A puff release, she says. And so a lot of the pictures tonight, there's about 80 of these pictures I got, maybe. Or 60 at least anyway, of these pictures. And these were the original pictures that were released by TEPCO. You go to TEPCO's website and download these pictures. And the links are, there's 1,900 of them. The links are, if you go to my playlists, let me do it for you, I guess. Nothing like doing. Bear with me. So you go to my playlist, click on playlist. Hello, playlist. Go down to the original pictures. Click on full playlist. If you click on that, you're going to go right to the video. But if you click on the full playlist, you're going to come to this page. And so when you click on this, the link should be underneath it. That don't mean it is not, because... Yeah, so you can click on that link there, photos of the accident at Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Station. Under any of those 6 videos. But I walk you through each of the videos. There's the photo collection. And as you scroll down, you're going to see this here. So when you click on that, it's going to ask you where you want to save it to. And I can save it to the desktop or save it wherever, right? And same thing with all these. So it gives you conditions around Unit 3, appearances of Unit 2, appearances of Unit 1. There's quite a few of them. You'll download it there. It's a compressed file. And then when you open it, you have to take the pictures out and transfer them to a desktop folder. So then you got full access to them. You can have, and that's basically what I do. Water discharge Unit 3 reactor building, appearances of reactor, appearance of reactor 2, conditions around Unit 1, water discharge in Unit 3. But what we discovered, if you watch my 6 video presentation on these pictures, is a lot of this stuff is not what they're saying it is. And it's definitely not the dates. And so they have the dates. So photos were taken in 2011, March 20th for that one, right? And you can see each one of them are, they tell you how big the file is. So it's a 4 megapixel file. It's a zip folder. And so that's going to have 6 or 7 pictures in it, right? Or 2 or 3 pictures in that particular one. But some of them like 12 megabytes, 9 megabytes. Because remember back then, digital cameras were probably 1 or 2 megapixels, right? But I'm showing you those pictures. This one is 35 megabytes. Condition is a shallow draft quake. And so you got to download each and every one of these and extract the folders, copy them and post them to a folder. And then eventually you'll have over 1,900 pictures. And you can download every one of them by just clicking on them. And under all of my videos in that playlist, the original pictures. So look up that one, right? You'll see 6 videos. And seeing as we're here, I'm live. That's the live video. If you go underneath my live video, I have the emails. Hi, everybody. The original picture. So if you go underneath my video and click, you got 17 people watching. If you scroll down through the description, when you see this line like that right there, that's a bunch of older headlines to give you some context, right? So scroll down and you're going to see, why were there 4 million redacted emails? So each of these, when you open them up, is going to take you over to the nuclear regulatory site. And so these are partial emails. And you can see it, like you can see up there, my bar, see how it's moving? It's barely moving. Because these are all PDF files. And if you click on them, you can open the PDF file, and you'll get something like this. And when you open that, and so what I do is I click the center of my mouse, and that will open it in another file for me. You'll get a PDF file. And that one that I just clicked on got 173 pages. That's got 173 pages. And you can scroll down to your heart's content. And generally what you will get for the majority of is going to be redacted emails. There's around 4 million redacted emails. Just let me see what, yeah, down here you're starting. Okay, so now you're getting redacted emails, right? And so this was Saturday, March the 12th email. And this is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's emails. There was over 4 million of them released in a Freedom of Information. And so that's how you access all of that. And so like in a sea after sea of emails, because I got 2013 is not here, 2014 not there. I didn't have enough room, so that was removed, right? But don't let that... By the way, you can donate at my PayPal, Dana Durnford. That's directly to my PayPal, and you can use credit cards here. You can use any of these credit cards at my PayPal, or at the nuclearproctologist.org. We had a few issues the first time in over a decade with that site. It was just the people that are handling the cards apparently needed more information, and I didn't appreciate it. We got that sorted out. And, this is a big operation I'm running. We're coming up in the prime research time. I still need another outboard motor, like a $14,000 outboard motor. We're going to have to do a fundraiser at some point. But we're doing some pretty cool stuff right now that I can't talk about. I'm slowly building the operation, so that in another 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, this operation should be close to finish, and it's going to be another facet of the field studies. Is United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on Earth and the 8 million species? I think that goes without saying. All right, let me get back after it here. All right, here we go. I think should be able to zoom in. There we go. So, Kathryn Higley, and I'm going to have to play a video of her, and I apologize to my regulars, who I'm sure are sick of hearing her. Perhaps radioactive steam, said health physicist Kathryn Higley, or perhaps radioactive steam. Because we have the luxury of hindsight, and Kathryn Higley is an expert, teaches in university nuclear engineering. She would have known everything I'm telling you, and a lot more. 1.4 million atoms a kilogram detected in the worm's feces, 60 kilometers from the meltdown. Kathryn Higley, she said, you saw radiation levels drop around the plant shoot up, although those appeared to have dropped off soon afterwards. How could they drop off? They'll drop off in a couple of million years, maybe. added Higley, the head of a nuclear engineering, radiation, health physics at Oregon State University. So if she doesn't know the difference, and she did, like this was released on the 15th, so there's no way that a professor at the Oregon State University didn't see that picture. There's no way. There's no way. Massive radioactive releases at Fukushima were going on for almost 3 years straight after that, by the way. The visible steam is just the tip of the ice. It's not visible steam. It's radiation from a China syndrome underground that split the Earth open. And then the emissions coming out of the ground in the right conditions might look like steam, but they're always coming out of the ground. You can't always see them because you need the right conditions, right? Exposure levels at the nuclear plant reached up to 400 millisieverts in radiation an hour before plunging to 0.6 millisieverts an hour. Like, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, if you've got 400 millisievers, 400,000 microsievers anywhere there, that's not going to plunge in 24 hours. How can it? It's not going away for millions of years. Unit 1 and Unit 2, the exhaust stacks, which are quite a long ways away from the plant, were at over 10 sieverts per hour. 3 sieverts considered a lethal dose, by the way. There's 1,000 millisieverts in a sievert. A millisievert is the international accepted measure of radiation dose based on biological effects in humans. No. That's just for shine from actual fuel. That's not from that's got nothing to do with a nuclear accident. A nuclear accident are physical atoms. That, yes, they're going to give off the energy, but they would be described as physical atoms. So becquerels of 500,000 atoms per square meter of ground, or 10 million per cubic meter air. They're going to be described in some kind of context like that. And so you're breathing it in. Like, when you go in and get an x-ray, that's a beam. So that's what they're talking about. There's a beam of energy. But they're at a nuclear meltdown. It's inappropriate to use that context. And the International Atomic Energy Agency's scale is based on natural radiation, not man-made radiation. By contrast, the average person receives about 1 or 2 millisieverts a year from natural sources. No, you don't. It's ludicrous to suggest it. Anything that you're exposed to on planet Earth, naturally, pre-nuclear industry, you're already acclimated to it through genetic superior selection, like every other species. That's why you exist. It's part of the genetic makeup. You know, the man-made stuff, we don't find that in the solar system. That's not created by the sun. These elements are not part of stardust. We call them man-made anthropogenic atoms because they're not created by nature. They're created by the stupid idiot. The nuclear industry. 15 millisieverts is the lowest cumulative annual dose for which there is an evidence of radiation-related cancer. No. So think of each millisievert as 1,000 microsieverts. Think of each microsiever as 750 atoms of, say, uranium or plutonium or something. Curium, by the way, is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod. And so if you take a single one of these atoms, the man-made atoms, and you put it in a human and it sequesters in them, then what happens is your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells and builds a tumor around it. Right? And so take 750 and multiply it by 50,000. Let me bring it up for you. That's always fun, isn't it? I gotta watch I don't digress too much because... Okay, so let's just do the number. 750,000 times... 750 times 50,000 microsievers. That's 37 million atoms in your body. So you have 37 million atoms in your body pulsing energy at the speed of light, wrecking your chromosomes, your DNA, and your cells. Your body's going to try to fix each of that at 37 million different places in your body. And it's going to try to attack the source every second for the rest of your life with white blood cells. That means you're going to, for that to work that way, you have to displace, for each one, you have to displace a red blood cell for each atom, right? So to speak. For each cell, rather. So now your immune system is compromised. It goes on and on and on. According to the World Nuclear Association, these are the worst humans we've ever come across. They're just degenerates, eh? And when you go to their stories, they never put their name on the story. Because cowards. That's what cowards do, right? They hide away in the dark, like they're doing right now at my site. They're watching us, taking notes, pretending that to their loved ones they're some kind of a human. For example, a total dose of 1,000 millisieverts in a day, which, again, they're talking about being in a close distance to the fuel itself. They're not talking about radioactive fallout. And this is Kathryn Higley, the worst human, one of the worst humans I've ever come across. As of now, there's only rumors of people reporting symptoms of radiation sickness. There's only rumors. And so I like, she's really evil, but I doubt even she was able to write this story. This is clearly cooked up by the nuclear industry, and she's put on a pedestal, and I'll explain that to you coming up. Don't get me wrong. She's capable. But I think she has to... all the propaganda comes from the one source, the two sources, like the nuclear... the nuclear associations, the lobbying groups, like the International Atomic Energy Agency, ERPA, UNSCLEAR, or the IPRC. Actually, I may play a clip of Kathryn Higley. And she talks about how many people work on each of these IAEA and UNSCLEAR and ERPA and et cetera, et cetera. And we're a small group of people. You should cherish us. Everybody's hating me right now. They're like, come on, Dana, please. Don't play that creature. Like, I know. It's important, though. Creatures are important, too. Let me put this up here so I don't forget to turn the volume back on. I'll get it out of the way. Meet Kathryn Higley. And this is post-Fukushima. She sat with a whole bunch of... that's Kyle Vetter on your right-hand side from Berkeley University. That's Tepco's little monkey. That's Miles... Miles... I can't remember his last name. Miles O'Brien, the one-armed bandit, right? Lost his arm at Fukushima, went over to Thailand and didn't tell anybody where he was to. The lady, the creature that looks like a lady in the white, is with the Nuclear Commission. I'm not sure who the degenerate by the flag is, but I certainly know the one stood up is Kathryn Higley.
When I was trying to pull this talk together, not only will I sort of get a little philosophical about the impacts and the like and try to put things in context, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about who are these radiation experts that get trotted out in events like this, or that get to participate in various activities and analysis to make pronouncements about is something safe or not safe. And if you look, you'll see organizations that are often represented. The ICRP, International Commission on Radiological Protection, a premier organization. You'll see UNSCEAR and ERPA. So UNSCEAR is the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. ERPA, the International Radiation Protection Association. The IAEA and some of its folks, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our own U.S. NCRP. And then there are a number of other organizations. So there's PAHO, there's the Health Physics Society, there's World Health Organization. All of these will bring in, as necessary, experts to speak to you on issues related to radiation protection, radiation safety, and impacts. But if you go a little deeper and you start looking at these organizations, the ICRP, for example, very well known. It's been operating nearly 100 years, not quite. Main commission, 10 people. It's got 5 standing committees. So it's 100-ish folks. I lead one of the 5 committees. If you look at the United Nations Scientific Committee on the effects of atomic radiation that looked at the effects from Chernobyl, from Fukushima, from other areas. And that has about 30, roughly, countries that are represented in that group. If you start teasing through these pictures, you're going to see the same people on every one of those organizations. So the same people from ICRP are on UNSCEAR, they're in ERPA. If you look at the NCRP, again, the US organization that advises the country on radiation protection issues, it's 100 people, a lot of gray-haired 100 people. And most of them are part of UNSCEAR, are part of ERPA, are part of ICRP, participate in IAEA. So the result, or the real world, is that there's not that many folks that really do radiation safety, radionuclide transport, dose calculations, all of this in the world. It's a pretty small club. And we wear 20 hats. Today I put on 3 pins, and I could put on a whole bunch more, but Health Physics Society, ICRP, Certified Health Physicist, I've got NCRP on there, I've done IAEA. And so the point is, we're a small group, you should cherish us.
How did they all know to laugh on cue? How did they know to laugh on cue, right? I don't know any other way to say it, but this is like a suicide fighters in the war. University of Tokyo radiological professor Nakagawa told the Associated Degenerate Press. By the way, this story is from National Geographic. In the long term, Japan is concerned about the fall of Japan. That's not true, especially given the country's high population density and small size. No, they were concerned that people would find out. That's all they were concerned about. They treated it like it didn't even happen. Like, no, it got out. That's crazy talk. Oh, you listen to the conspiracy theorists. Do you ever notice that the conspiracy theorists a lot of times are right? At least 80% of the times anyway. There are the control opposition, right? They'll come out like conspiracy theorists, and they'll drag you in. There was a guy who used to attack me all the time, and he would do a video on Sasquatch and a video on aliens and then a video on me. He'd done that for years. And he would mix us together, right? It was very effective, by the way. And then people that bought into it would come over and attack me all the time. That's why like I am today, right? But like there's a bigger calling here. This is an extinction event, and we don't... Those of us who are in the know don't have a right to ignore this. Unless you got some personal trauma going on in your life that you got to deal with, loved ones or whatever. It's a worthy pursuit is to... So just imagine if we weren't doing these shows as often as we could. There was zero awareness, really, at this stage, right? People long forget. I'm getting a little slick here. I'm forgetting to check my glasses. Made them worse than what they were. I'll fix it. Give me a second here. It's a complicated subject, is what I'm trying to say. And that the average person is not going to figure it out on their own. They're just simply not going to happen. But the average person, once they understand the story, they're much more empowered. And you're not going to hoodwink them, and they're not part of the problem anymore. They're part of the solution. And there is nobody going to beat them in a debate or an actual conversation. It's not going to happen. That's a very powerful thing, being able to win that debate, because it's important. And so that's why we show you so much documentation, an overwhelming amount of documentation, so your subconscious is reassured that you had the moral and ethical high ground. Come on, Dana, get my eyeballs to work here. Let me go backwards 1 second. A variety of dangerous radioactive materials are present at Fukushima, including plutonium. Well, the curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than the plutonium, and they're the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods, by the way. They don't get any love at all, including plutonium. But most worrisome are the plutonium and the curium and the uranium and americium. And the neptunium-239 decays to plutonium in 2.5 days, for goodness sakes. They all vaporize easily. It's not just cesium, it's not just iodine. Kathryn Higley is such a disgusting parasite on humanity. It's a despicable parasite, what she's done. You'll understand. I'll come up in a minute, actually, a bit more. Iodine pills, which authority were given out in the regions, they were not. They raised the limit 75 times higher than the degenerates had already set it at. Like, you can't do nothing at a nuclear meltdown. Take a picture. They would have got sick and died that day or that week. I couldn't beat the microphone that time, sorry. Because sneezes, they typically come in twos, right? Or within an hour exposure to fallout. No, you got to take it 24 hours before the fallout. It's not going to protect you, per se, in a nuclear accident, though, because there's too much radiation. And it's not just iodine going to go in your thyroid. Any gammas, like cesium, for instance, will go in your thyroid, right? So far, Fukushima radioactive material has not risen especially, and if it doesn't go in your thyroid, it goes into your adrenaline glands, your pituitary gland or something. Like, the problem is, no matter what goes into your thyroid gland, it's going to turn it into a radioactive hormone, which means you've got trouble. Trouble is on the road, always in front of you, right? It's gotten knocked down by wind, rain, and salt spray, says Oregon State Higley. It's so hard to comprehend that that's a professor of nuclear engineering at Oregon State University for all this time. And her job is to create students that hate your guts. Right? Weed out everybody else, and the only people that gets in her class are people that hate humanity and could be molded into a little monster like her. So there's people who don't mind dying. You know, Higley's never went there. Also, it's sticky and has a static charge that makes it stick to building surfaces and lungs, and livers, heart muscles, and everything else. She's a despicable person, eh? Radioactive fallout covered the entire planet immediately. We're going to find most of the contamination really close in, stuck on the walls and bushes and the lakes, says the scumbag. This is a plutonium after 20 days covers most of the planet right away. It never stopped coming at it, or even a day. It'll never stop coming at it. Most of the released fallout would decay relatively quick ahead of the external exposures. The Research Center for Radiation Medicine of Ukraine. You know, that's going to be a loser. You know, that's going to be a bit of a monster. Like, the West Coast was hit with 220 million atoms about 5 or 6 days later per liter. So saturated thyroid glands of every bird, every insect, every mammal, every animal, every human on the entire planet. And we're talking for 150 million years, just 10 half-lives. So saying that it's going to go away fairly quickly, will decay relatively quickly, when clearly that's not true. When you're an expert, right, and you bring in National Geographic, right, this whole story was National Geographic. They bring in an expert, but it's based around Kathryn Higley, the head of the monsters. Once the plant is relatively stable, the best strategy would be just to leave the contamination site alone for, say, 1 year. This will let the radioactive levels drop to manageable levels. How are they going to drop in 1 year when it takes millions of years for it to decay away? To decay into another isotope. That's not quite as bad as that one. Like, they're predators. every step of the way, and they purposely kept the education away from the population, so when this finally does happen, they can't rationalize what's going on. It worked 100%. And they got people like me, well, all you got to do is censor me. Not very hard to censor me. YouTube will do it for free, for goodness sakes. They'll do it for free, right? It's only Dana. There's nobody else running an educational program on the planet. Well, I mean, you can count James Lucid now because his music, his videos are telling a story, right, about a subject in nuclear. And that's a pretty powerful weapon, man, right on its own. You can't stop that one. That's slowly leaking out, so to speak. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima. On Tuesday, the International Atomic Energy Agency rated the seriousness of the nuclear emergency at Fukushima as a 6 on a scale of 7. 6 on a scale of 7, eh? 3 Mile Island was a 5 and Chernobyl was a 7. So why would you conflate single reactors with multiple reactors? And that none of these reactors had fuel pools at the top of the buildings for decades. They're like 44-year-old plants. They had 40 years of reactor cores at the top of the buildings. There's nothing left of these buildings, right? When you look at the side of the building here, it's completely gone. And that's the bottom of the building. There is no reactors. That's reactor 4. There's nothing left to react. There's nothing left. There's nothing there. The building is only about 1/4 of the height it's supposed to be. And the fuel pools and reactor cores are at the top of each of those buildings. And for instance, the Chernobyl, the world's worst nuclear accident in history. But that's not. This is on the 18th, right? On the 15th, this picture was released, and they would have had that picture in their hand when they're writing that story. And they know everything I'm telling you, and then some. An explosion occurred when the system was at full power. Well, they were at full power. They shut down for an hour, but they're still at full power. I mean, you can't deny what happened, right? And then you can't really compare Chernobyl, a single reactor that happened to be graphite, which is nothing compared. It's brutal, but it's nothing compared to Fukushima's pure uranium plutonium. And Fukushima had Medusa, for goodness sakes, the plutonium mixed oxide reactor 3. There's nothing left to. These are bigger reactors than Chernobyl by far. A massive volume compared to Chernobyl on top of that. And there is no building left. At least Chernobyl got a bit of the building left, right? At Fukushima, and Chernobyl, it was they closed 9,400 farms, 3,000 kilometers away in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. They should have closed every farm and abandoned North America, Canada, United States, New Mexico after Fukushima minimum. They should have abandoned the Northern Hemisphere. I know it sounds crazy to you, but the numbers don't lie. At Fukushima, the reactors have already been shut down. Their containment structures appear to be largely functioning, Oregon State Higley said. But, I mean, they released this picture right away. She had that picture and was staring at that before she wrote the story. That's called a monster. You literally got to be a monster to keep that job. You literally got to be a disgusting parasite to keep the job like that. And that picture was available too, right? There's nobody in the nuclear industry looked at that and said the fuel pools were intact or the reactor core was intact. Everybody knew it was gone. She said Fukushima currently seems more like 3 Mile Island, which lost coolant and had a partial meltdown. This was 36 reactor cores gone. Disappeared and poisoned every species on the planet in a short period of time, 20 to 30 days. Right? Like when you get to day 30, the whole planet is buried in radioactive fallout. And the French study, this was 23 days later, of radioactive fallout. This is 1 million to 10 million atoms, or 1 million to 10 million times background level pre-Fukushima of cesium-137. The whole planet is an invisible snowstorm after 23 days. And the cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second. 600 feet. And it wrecks chromosomes and DNA in cells, sterilizes spiders and birds and insects and frogs and puppies. Kathryn Higley. An actual real-life monster. She had that picture, she knew different. But when you look at her, she showed up. When you look at a picture of Kathryn Higley, she shows up everywhere. She's a prolific monster. That's who she is. She's an actual monster. And we know that because she shows up everywhere. And we know her narrative is pure propaganda. And real life monster, right? It's hard to be Ken Abusler and Jay Cullen and people like that. But Higley managed to do it. Rod Adams. Nuclear workers take risk for the public good. The NPR, they sold you out, didn't they? This is March the 18th, 2011, 14 years ago today. That's what it looked like at the site 14 years ago today. They're spraying water from 2 different directions. So these are remote controlled. Now, you got to drive them in there. Excuse me. And you got to drive it in there and park it and set it up. And then once you hit pump, right then you run away in your paper suit. The firemen and the police. Like, that's the craziest part of the story. You're sending in people who knows nothing about a nuclear meltdown. Right? The so-called first responders, the original ones are firemen and police officers. There's over 300 of them died, by the way, police officers. But you're sending them into a nuclear meltdown who don't know nothing about a nuclear meltdown. What does that tell us about the nuclear industry? That screams monsters, don't it? They're so dysfunctional, these people, the majority of them. The university has to take care of most things in their life. You literally got to treat them like babies to get them to come to class every day. They're so dysfunctional. They go to the university and they get a degree after degree after degree, but they can't leave the university. They're not capable of going out and looking for a job. Right? They're the perfect Manchurian candidate. Right? They know nothing, only what the university told them. And there's nothing they won't do for the university. They'll sacrifice everything on the planet just to be in the good graces of the university, dear God. Their God. You have 12 people on the show today. Whenever we do a poll about the International Atomic Energy Agency, we really don't ever get anybody on the show. Like physically showing up. Is United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on humanity and the 8 million species? There's only one answer for that one. Hell yeah, dog. Three Mile engineers. It's probably homeless. That's what they've done their whole existence. About 300 workers at the plant. What are you going to do at a nuclear meltdown when you got 4 in a row? What are you going to do? I want to hear it. Call in 709-589-4406 if you're a nuclear scientist. And tell me what you're going to do right there. You're there. You're in charge. What are you going to do, big shot? Give me a call. Let's hear it. I'm not doing anything else till you call in and tell me. What are you going to do? You're the big shot, cherry pie. Call in, tell me what you're going to do with that nuclear meltdown. Come on, big shot. Let's hear it. Ooh, cha-cha. Big shot, cherry pie. Give us a call and tell us what you're going to do with that nuclear meltdown. It's 709-589-4406. Come on, big shot, call in. Come on, nuclear scientist. Come on, boy. Come on, puppy. In the near future, you'll be allowed to keep them in cages like pets, right? And you'll be allowed to poke them with a stick when you wake up in the morning, make you feel all better inside. But until then, give us a call. 709-589-4406. I'm not going to hurt you. Big shot. I'm waiting. What are you gonna do? 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 Big shot. What are you gonna do at a nuclear meltdown? Huh? 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 What are you gonna do? Big shot. What are you gonna do? 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 You're gonna do jack shit, yeah? You'll do nothing. You'll fall of shit. An additional 17 have suffered what the Japanese government calls disposition of radioactive material to the face. Disposition of radioactive material to the face, you say, at a nuclear meltdown. What's up, dog? So 17 people, disposition. Who talks like that, right? Had radioactive material splashed on them in their face. Can't say that. That sounds really bad. Let's call it disposition of radioactive material to their face. Should nuclear scientists have to have their faces cut off and replaced with like a zipper or something? So whenever you ask them a question, they unzip and then they can talk to you for a second. They got to zip up where they're waiting for you to reply. At least give us that much. An additional 17 have suffered what the radiation, the moron, the idiot, the dummies, the Japanese government, called disposition of radioactive material to their face. I just, when I was reading that today, I was like, whoever wrote this story, can you imagine what kind of degenerate you got to be? But we get that every single story of the nuclear industry. It's perpetual. Oh, what kind of monster is that, George? If you think nuclear scientists are scumbags, give us a thumbs up. On the video. Come on, let me see it. If you think nuclear scientists should be thrown out of a helicopter onto the melter reactors, give me a thumb up. You think it should be legal to spit in a nuclear scientist's face every time you see one in the future? Give me a thumbs up. Show them what you're thinking. The workers in Fukushima are facing different challenges. The homeless in Fukushima are facing different challenges. One of those challenges is trying to figure out whether nuclear fuel is actually melting. And when you look at this picture that was released on the 16th, 2 days before they wrote this story that we're talking about, written by experts who would have looked at that picture and would have said, well, we can't write that down. They don't show you pictures. All the pictures I'm showing you, these are pictures from a different story that if I don't get my ass in gear, we're not going to get to. Some workers at the Fukushima plant probably have been exposed to high levels, perhaps similar to the levels encountered by the Chernobyl liquidators. Oh, not another one of them. Chernobyl got nothing. Chernobyl's brutal, right? It's just brutal what it's done. But it's nothing compared to Fukushima. Like a paper towel compared to Fukushima. Fukushima is equal to about 3,600 Chernobyls. Chernobyl is pure uranium, pure plutonium. It's not graphite. Oh, this is Vladimir Gudkov, a physicist at the University of South Carolina, who was working in Leningrad when the Chernobyl incident occurred. Meltdown, right? Says he has friends who worked as liquidators, and like most of the other people who went in after the explosion and fire, they have not developed health problems. But he's a physicist, but he didn't go in there, did he? They have not developed health problems from the radiation, really.
The fact that the reactor in Japan is 100 times more powerful than the one in Chernobyl, and in fact the two stations, the two power plants in the Fukushima region produce the world's biggest joint amount of energy, and this means of course that this reactor, which is under threat now, is far more powerful than the one in the fourth block of the Chernobyl nuclear power station, which exploded 25 years ago.
Just crazy, isn't it? I don't like that guy, Alex. Up there. I made a video about him years ago. But he's right in what he's saying. Each reactor is 100 Chernobyls. The Chernobyl liquidators survived received metal badges, Dana. Yeah, they got a little pension too. Was it $6 a month or something? These badges depict radioactive particles passing through a drop of blood. I'm not joking, by the way. $6 a month or something for a pension. It was all 600 helicopter pilots died. And Harvard University actually, post-Fukushima, within a couple of weeks of Fukushima, they were doing a presentation on Fukushima, questions and answers. We're going to cover that whole presentation, but here's a clip from it, about Chernobyl.
And you know well at Chernobyl, the helicopter pilots that came in and that deposited the heavy materials to try to put down that fire, which was a very different kind of event than what we're looking at now. But still, there were helicopters, and the pilots all died from radiation exposure. Here's a decision question.
All the helicopter pilots died. There was over 100 of them, actually. Early radiation data from near the plant eases health fears. That's March the 18th. This is a picture from another story. An aerial view taken from a helicopter, self-defense forces, shows, they call it steam for some reason, from the number 3 reactor at Fukushima. Well, number 3, that's what's missing from the picture is 8 reactor cores from the fuel pools and the reactor core. It ejected it right out of the buildings. Early radiation data from their nuclear plants eases health fears. Background level is ever-present low-level radiation given off by rocks and cosmic rays and fossil fuels. Thank goodness they didn't say bananas. I would have had a nervous breakdown if I hear that word again. And fossil fuels and other natural sources. So do you think they're there on the other side of the pump houses on by the ocean, pumping water towards the reactors because it's like walking in sunshine or bananas or potato chips? Like, how can you even mention that when it comes to a nuclear meltdown? Because that's what nuclear academics do. Their job is to cut your throat. There was David Brenner, the director of the Columbia University Center for Radiation Research, right? We had the head honcho just retired from the Mayo Clinics last night doing the same thing. And then all these key cancer facilities worldwide are run by the monsters. Not maybe, not some of them, but all of them. Ratings are 10 times higher than background. I don't think one would bat an eyelash at, really, said David Brenner. Won't bat a lash. That's because you're not there, right? If he was there, he'd claw your eyes out trying to get out of there. This is the pump house. This is on the ocean side. The only exception to the generally low-level radiation measurements, there is no low level at a nuclear meltdowns. They're nuclear meltdowns. They toss the fuel assemblies right out of the buildings all over the site. There is no low doses on that site. 200 sieverts per hour at reactor number 1, for instance. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. 200 sieverts will melt your organ as you try to run past it. It's 150 feet long to run past it, right? And so before you can run 150 feet, your organs are going to melt with that kind of gamma shines, neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the alpha shines, the X-rays. From 3 monitoring posts northwest of the power plant. The only monitoring posts that were working were up by the gates, which is southwest of the site. the farthest southwest corner of the site. That's where they actually had 3 of the radiation detecting devices that were allegedly working. I don't know how they were working. They never had no power for 1,200 kilometers of the coastline. These 3 posts are clustered together at one point about 18 miles from the power plant. So these posts are 18 miles away. 50 to 170 times higher than the other post, allegedly. Now, we covered details. And I remember earlier I showed you the emails, how to access those 4 million emails. We've uncovered quite a lot of these emails where the Nuclear Regulatory Commission talking to their cronies, their mass murderers, their serial killers in cahoots, and they were exchanging the weather data, right? And we've actually covered all of that extensively. It's not clear, experts say, that these high levels had anything to do with the emissions from the nuclear power plant. So here he is, they're saying, it's really disappointing, isn't it? That's David Brenner, Director of Columbia University Center for Radiation Research, suggesting that the high levels of radiation are 50 to 170 times higher, 18 miles away, had anything to do with the nuclear meltdowns. Because we can't prove it came from the nuclear meltdowns. Well, why wouldn't you suggest it was from the nuclear meltdowns when you done this interview on the allegedly done the interview on the 18th? Right, the International Atomic Energy Agency might have your name in a bottle and just picks it out and attaches it to a story because you gave them the go-ahead. Like, there's none I've never seen that picture. It's such an important picture because this was on the 15th. Excuse me. Radiation levels are affected by natural circumstances such as rock outcroppings. Imagine saying that at a nuclear meltdown. Imagine telling the people there that are doing this and this that the radiation is natural. Imagine having, and there is like Robert Gale would do it in a heartbeat. There's quite a few who will actually do it. Dr. Robert Gale is certainly one of them. And apparently Brenner is too. There are no health risks here, Brenner agrees. There's no health risk at a nuclear meltdown. That's amazing. You should go there and show us how it's done there, big shot. Look at it another way. A person could spend an entire year at Fukushima hotspot. Sounds like James Colbert, eh? From the Colbert Report. And still not receive a lethal dose of radiation. That's his exact words, right? Remember that? I got the video clips of him. He said you would have to sit there and breathe the water that spilled out of the tanks, because there was a big controversy, right, about high-level water from the tanks. James Colbert put out a video with Ryan Dawson, I think it was, and they were laughing, joking about it. Saying, well, you have to put your face right there in the water and hold it there straight for 6 hours just to get the same dose as a banana or something. That's why I hate his guts so much, because they're public relation firms disguised as patriots, right? And he's Canadian, so he's extra offensive to me. Although he might suffer, because I'm a Canadian, I disrespect people from Canada that do that stuff. Although he might suffer some radiation symptoms such as nausea. David Brenner, right? Radiation was, this is March the 18th headline. Radiation is streaming into the atmosphere after number 4 fuel pool boiled dry in a fire. But that happened on the 14th or the 15th, because you can see number 4 reactor down in the corner is completely destroyed, right? That was the 15th. So by the 15th, you had 36 reactor cores, 9 reactor cores in each building minimum, 4 decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings. It's very offensive, eh? Both Dope and Brenner raised a number of caveats about the new data. It's not clear what the natural background levels of radiation are in this part of Fukushima Prefecture. So it would be necessary to know in judging whether the levels recorded this week are likely to be due to emissions from the power plant or just natural stuff. It's impossible for me to like a professor. after seeing this much abuse by them over the years. David Brenner, the director of the Columbia University Center for Radiation Research. He's the director at the University for Research. And here he is cutting your throat, saying that he'd have to know what the natural background levels before he would be willing to consider that it could have been from the nuclear plant. That just don't beat all, eh? Well, the whole problem is this is March 8th. It's a perpetual stream of these apologists for the nuclear industry. It's a perpetual stream. Early radiation data from the near plant is the same story. For comparison, an airline passenger on a flight from New York to Los Angeles would get 0.2 millisieverts of radiation from high altitude cosmic rays. Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with anthropogenic man-made radiation. You can't conflate them. You can't compare them to each other, Brenner. And you know it, Brenner. So if you took Brenner and tried to make him stand up right here, he would literally pick up a rock and bash your head so he can run away. Like if he was unconscious and he woke up and he was right there looking up at that, whoever's alongside him, he's going to kill him right on the spot, take their shoes and run away. Because that's what cowards do. Airborne radiation poses a minuscule risk for the United States. It never stops, eh? For now, I would say that there is very little risk, says Andre Bouville, who recently retired as head of the radiation dosimetry units at the National Cancer Institute. So he was the head of the National Cancer Institute. There's very little risk, he says. He talks about 3 Mile Island, right? Let me go back. I didn't save it, apparently. This is 3 Mile Island Faller Cancer Cluster.
Here's the 3 Mile Island, Susquehanna River, Harrisburg.
Right, that's the cancer clusters.
So these are the
from
estimates
the study.
From the
and so you can see the dark one was the brutal cancers, right? But cancer's typically latent, right? So that's what Andrew looks like. National Institute. A real life monster, right? He's the former head of the National Cancer Center. Saying it's just so the plumes are mainly steam. This is the administration building up on the hill behind Reactor 3 and 4. This wasn't tsunami damage, this was the explosion. That building's pretty far away from the reactors. Officials in Japan have reported the radiation levels in and around the plant are higher than normal. But Bouville says these measures are probably a reflection of radiation leaks from elsewhere at the facility, not from the cloud of gas. But that's the guy who's in charge of the cancer center, the National Cancer Center, cutting your throats. Doesn't that make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside to know he's in charge of your loved ones when you get cancer? Radiation around Fukushima near levels where humans vomit uncontrollably and the hair can be stripped from their bodies. Well, he's not going there. He should have been the first one they sent there, by the way. He's the expert. Bouville recently retired as head of the National Cancer Institute. He said, my interpretation is that the radiation readings are due to external radiation. They come from inside the plant itself, but are not due to the radioactive cloud. So how can it be a radioactive cloud if it doesn't give you a dose, I wonder? Report indicates 5 Fukushima workers have most likely received a fatal dose of radiation. That was original, right? That was March the 15th. You know, we live in a sea of radiation. There's natural radiation due to uranium and thorium in the ground from cosmic rays coming from the sky, Bouville said. So he takes the coward route as usual, like every other nuclear. All the nuclear experts from Mayo and the National Cancer Centers, and these are all the monsters of society. They get the job because they're just disgusting parasites. That is probably one of the most frightening statements conceivable, by the way. La 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 la. Let's do the poll again, maybe. Is the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on Earth and the 8 million species? Well, hell yeah, dog. That's a fact. So the number of deaths, the extreme increase in mortality caused by cardiac diseases in the first year, the death rates might give the creeps to some people. It was an extra 12,700 in just a single month dying of heart attacks compared to any other month or year before. In a single month, rather. But doesn't Bouville take the cake in evil? Like, he's giving Kathryn Higley a run for her money there. Dr. Scumbag. The head of the National Cancer Institute came right out and cut everybody's throat right away. Oh, yeah. Look, he's got every hair still on his head. He's retired. That guy has no guilty conscience, I can tell you that much. Cleaning up Fukushima challenge to the court. You got people in paper suits spraying a reagent that happens to be green, by the way, that's meant to coat the particulates that are still splitting atoms to try to drop the radiation levels locally, right? Because these people are not nuclear experts. They're wearing paper suits, right? So, well, first off, they're on the site, so they're definitely not nuclear experts. They're not going to go on to a site where buildings detonated and ejected the reactor cores all over the sites. That's not going to happen. It's just amazing to see the contempt they have for you, though. Story after story after story from each day. Like Reactor 1 blew up. So Bouville says, for the National Cancer Institute, the head of it, says that there was no radiation in that cloud. Reactor 3 blew up, and there's no radiation in that cloud. Reactor 3 doesn't even exist anymore. Ejected the fuel pools, 8 reactor cores from the fuel pools and the running reactor core, and he said there is no radioactive fallout whatsoever. And he's in charge of your loved one's cancer for all them years. So how many people did he murder in his tenure as the head of the National Cancer Institute, National Cancer Center? That's supposed to be somebody that can sympathize with you, isn't it? Not somebody that hates your guts like he does. That's the marvel of going back into these stories is it's like a horror show each time. Each one. And I really noticed that the effects upon me over the last couple of days of doing these particular stories is not subtle at all. It's like it's a horror show all day long. And when I'm doing the show, but when the show is over, I'm physically exhausted. It's like I feel it right in my chest. I'm physically exhausted. And I wake up the next day and I go to do the show for, like I done this morning. I wake up and I'm going to start doing the show now for the night, right? So you fire up all that, you get your page up with the news cycle from the 18th of March, and you get your cup of tea. I'm drinking ginger tea. It's not really tea, it's just hot ginger. And I like cooling it down too, and just using it for like a cold, just use it like water, right? It's so good for your heart and vascular. Spray substance help reduce dust. No, it's not going to reduce dust. It's going to reduce radioactive emissions from the particulates. It's meant to bind to them as a reagent to stop them from splitting atoms into the local atmosphere. And they're going to die that day from doing that job. There's no way they're going to live past that day, whoever's doing that in their paper suits. It's too bad it wasn't Brenner or that other skunk. Nuclear Ninja suicide mission to save Japan. Hooray! A handful of heroes. Yeah, the homeless and the destitute. Well, we just seen a hero. There he is right there, look. That's it. That's a real life hero right there. And he ain't no nuclear expert because he wouldn't be on the site. Nuclear experts don't go to Fukushima. That's a fact. They send your loved ones there to get sick and die later, and then they tell you it had nothing to do with the job. Handful of heroes working to avert a total meltdown. What's the date on that again? Oh, that's right, the 18th. So how can you be working to avert a total meltdown at a place where you have nothing but total meltdown, where you actually had the reactor buildings detonate? Reactor 3 ejected the reactor core and the fuel pool visibly right out of the building. It's not an opinion either. How come we don't have a picture of reactor 4 exploding? We have the stump of reactor 3. We've seen the video of that, but that's right alongside of reactor 4. So how come we didn't see, never seen that? I know they got the video. We've covered stories about it. But how come we've never seen the video of reactor 4 explosion? Why was it necessary to hide that? What was in that particular video that they felt they can't release it? And even today, the official story today, that didn't happen. The official story today, despite everything I showed you, the official story says never happened. Everything I'm showing you is officially a lie. That's their take on it. Particularly since August 24, 2023, International Atomic Energy Agency, working with South Korea, Taiwan, China, and Japan, the 5 of them together, the 5 little demons, are saying this never happened. And the only person out there providing you the documentation, unfortunately, is me. That's it. That's the most frightening thing imaginable. And I say that because I'm hoping that you'll take up the challenge and prove me wrong. And I provided you an endless supply of documentation over all these years. We're still going strong. I just wish I could do more, right? That's my biggest concern is I'm able to do more. I'm able to go after this industry and challenge it in every step of the way, legally, through the courts and everything else, litigation, whatever. I'm able to challenge it. I'm able to put together a huge blowback. If you've had a big foundation support me, I can put together a whole crew of people, and we would come out 24 hours a day on this story. We would bust nuclear apart. We'd bust them good. Within 6 months to a year, that would be the end of them. They'd be finished. And we'd be on the path to some kind of a future for the humans and the species that might survive what they've done to us already. But they have compromised the future of all species. Just from the perpetual radioactive fallout from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. It's the only thing we know of on the planet that is exterminating us. Guaranteed. It's going to every species, not just humans. Don't get fixated on just humans, but the 8 million species. There's nothing on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against anthropogenic man-made radiation. And that is the most frightening, the most terrifying statement that we will ever hear on this planet. That's the most terrifying thing conceivable, because there's so much released every single day into the environment through the fuel pools, which are all splitting atoms. We are in desperation mode to have a future. We are no way to avoid the extinction event and the current path we're on. And because we live in that time where we live in that one moment in history, a little bloop in history, where we have the ability to change the outcome. We live in that one moment where we can talk to each other worldwide. In the legacy of humanity, this was the moment that we were supposed to seize. And what they're doing to us, and then you got the key people in all at the Mayo Clinic, the National Cancer Center, all of these key positions are filled with the worst of the worst humanity has to offer, the most hateful of the hateful. The people in charge of radiation, no matter where you look, are going to be the lowest form on the food chain when it comes to humans. They're the worst humans imaginable. They're the least people that should have be getting a job. Under no circumstances should any of these people get a job in those positions. Not one of them even... It's just not fair, is it? We're being exterminated and everybody... Because you can't smell it or see it or hear it or feel it or taste it. You have endless foundations out there and none of them support me. Somebody that's really... I've showed over and over and over forever and ever and ever now in my lifetime. The documentation, the will, the ability, and the urgency that the world needs to get on a different path. We got no time. We've lost this one time. There was a presidential candidate about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, not last term but the term before, for an American president, that if he got elected, he was going to hire me to deal with the nuclear waste. And there would be nothing in my way. He would go to it. It was too bad he didn't get elected. I talked to him for several hours. He called me up. He had watched my stuff, and he was like, yeah, well, that's not what I heard, but I believe you, unfortunately. And we need to deal with it. There's no doubt about it. He said, I'll make it a priority that we deal with that facet because what's the sense if we can't have a future? Like, we need a foundation to step in to fund this operation. You know, I need 2 outboard motors, 2 brand new outboard motors. Because I'm going out on the most wicked ocean on the planet, trying to do research, do field studies. And I got a motor that's been to Alaska from Vancouver, British Columbia 6 different times. That's now broken on me. And how am I supposed to replace that? How am I supposed to get back out there and do the research? Right, they're for $12,000 each for those motors. How do I, without a foundation, like Greenpeace is not going to support me, right? The nuclear industry is not going to support me. The universities who are cutting your throats are not going to support me. And I don't know how to give up. It's not in my DNA at all. The perfect candidate for the job, because I actually hate this industry. I get what they got done to us. I get what they got done. So what are you going to do with this nuclear meltdown? This is footage that was released on the 15th, 15th, or 16th. What are you going to do there? You're going to do nothing. The reactors are gone. You ejected the reactor and 8 reactor cores from the fuel pools. What are you going to do? Right? So they were feeding you that they were there mitigating it. Nuclear ninja, suicide mission to save Japan. It simply wasn't true, was it? The Japanese media have dubbed the elite squad the Japanese media. Man, did they ever cut the Japanese throats. The worst thing that ever happened to Japan was the Japanese media. Humanity will look back and hate media forever. They'll despise them. It'll be, it's really, they deserve whatever comes their way. They shouldn't have any rights as a human. They shouldn't have the same rights as a human. They shouldn't be allowed to breathe air and drink water like us. What they done to us is unacceptable, no matter how you try to spin it. And even the nuclear ninjas, as they try to save the country. So they were feeding the population brutal propaganda. Meantime, they're like, send us people who don't mind dying. What do you think they're talking about? Well, that's right, the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. Nuclear experts have said the men on a suicide mission, and that not even their airtight suits can save them from contamination. Airtight suits? Like, what are you talking about? What airtight suits? Has anybody seen a single picture out of Japan in the last 14 years from Fukushima at men in airtight suits? Of those who decide to stay, 5 are known to have already died. Again, that's the administration building, quite a long ways away from the reactors. That was the explosion of the reactors done that. Many firemen and rescue workers also died from radioactive contamination after rushing to the scene to help despite knowing the risk. It's pretty rare to hear that statement, isn't it? You know that's a true statement, no? A former worker at Chernobyl said the general came and said, I would rather have 2,000 people contaminated if it lets 200 million people live. We were sent to work at the reactor to clean up the waste. Now only half of my unit is alive. And I know that story. I know that general. I don't know him personally, but I watched the documentaries and the interviews and everything. But we're talking about Fukushima, where you got 36 reactor cores melted down at the one in a 4-day period. Well, by the 15th anyway. So yeah, 4 days. And we're at the 18th day with these stories. Like, you lost the fuel pools immediately. Pretty slick what they done, right? Just let me see if I can explain that right quick for you. They're such terrible people. Okay, I just need one more now. Here we go. Take a second. Here we go. So, you see that damaged here? It's hard to wrap your mind around it, see? So there's the explosion from that building right there. That's the explosion. Okay. But what is the explosion made of? Well, they said the containment, not the containment, but the building itself, it didn't hurt the fuel pool, didn't hurt the reactor. So that's what it looks like. See the roof up there? It's identical what it should look like. Now look at the roof. So look at that roof and tell me that roof can make that much. Because remember, the buildings are 19 stories, 65 meters, 190 feet. And so that plume that you're seeing from the top of reactor building is the fuel in the pool. That's what went up. Because that metal that you see up there can't make a plume like that. And that's reactor 1. So you had another one blown up, not just reactor 1, but reactor 3 that we got videos and pictures of. So reactor 3 looks like that. What's left over. But it actually ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools right into the building. So the explosion is just unbelievable because it was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. But the official story is that nothing got out of that, and that the very top of that building is what caused that plume. Clearly, that's not true. Clearly, when you look at the damage, and you're even remotely honest, then you're only left with one version, is that the fuel pool, the reactor core that was in the fuel pool, is the only thing that can make a plume look like that, because the top of the reactor buildings don't have any material there to produce, neither does reactor 1, to produce plumes of these enormous sizes. Something physically has to produce those clouds. And what produced the clouds was like in reactor 3, actually you can see big chunks falling back down in the videos. That's the reactor cores in the fuel pools. The plume keeps going up, but you have these big chunks falling back down. Like the fuel pool itself, the physical fuel pool itself and the fuel that was in it, which is 8 reactor cores in each of those buildings, is what created the plumes that you're looking at. Now, just because we don't have a plume, a picture of reactor 4 explosion, they've taken advantage of that. They refuse to release it. So what they done 2 years later, in 2013, was pretend that that building over there, at the very top of it, was here. Now some of the medias that are claiming during the fuel pool at the top of a building clearly don't exist, clearly blew up. Incredible, look at the damage. Japan nuclear crisis, is massive water dump making any difference? No, of course not. The reactors had already blown up. And this was the 18th, March the 18th, 2011. 14 years ago today. 14 years ago today. Hello, everybody. March the 18th, 14 years ago today. And that's pictures from 14 years ago today. These pictures I imported into the show were a collection that I showed you how to download yourself. As Japan races against time, as Japan races against time, just bear with me. I don't know. Just hang on 1 second. Don't matter. The pool house and unitary reactor building were dangerously low. No, they were gone. Everybody knew it. You see the plume coming out of Reactor 3. That's the 29th of March, by the way, that picture. Japanese worker poured more than 60 tons of water into Unit 3 building on Friday with an as yet unknown effect. Now we know the effect. The reactor had already been ejected. The fuel pools were already ejected out of the building. It was 100,000% loss. You're talking about reactors that are each equal to 100 Chernobyls. So there's 800 Chernobyls melted down right there. There was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor on top of that. In addition, water in Unit 4 cooling pool remained pervious close to a boiling point. No, Reactor 4 was gone. These pictures were released on the 16th, showing those buildings were gone. All of them knew this. They wrote these stories on the 18th. But what you see is this, all the media worked diligently to make sure you had no ability to comprehend it, no way to appreciate it, and no way to come back from what's happening. I mean, they built the reactors on the tectonic plates themselves. They're actually the tectonic plates. Right? They're 40 miles away from the tectonic plates that do that. And so the tectonic plates, why would you build reactors? That's literally building the reactors on the tectonic plates, because you're only 40 miles away. Hard cases. Hydrogen buildup has caused at least 2 reactor buildings to explode. Well, clearly they all exploded by the 18th. The fuel pools were designed that way there because when the reactor complex was constructed decades ago, you're going to like this one, engineers thought the fuel would only spend a few weeks on site before being shipped to a reprocessing plant elsewhere. You can't ship it for a decade. You can't put it in a cast and take it somewhere else for at least a decade. That was David Lockbroom from the Union of Unconcerned Scientists. Are you gullible? Find out for $1. David Lockburn. The Director of Nuclear Safety at the Union of Concerned Scientists / Union of Unconcerned Scientists. So every single expert in a key position come out and cut your throat. Every one of them without fail. In the most key positions, everywhere you looked, they were the ones that came out and cut your throat. Every professor in every cancer institution, they came out and happily cut your throat. Literally made fun of your concern. Literally spit on the death of your loved ones. The spent fuel would only spend a few weeks on the site before being shipped to a processing elsewhere. I can't even wrap my mind around that kind of evil to say that. That's a level of evil that unfortunately we're used to. This is normal. Where was it? I screwed up here. Yeah, David and this one. Okay. I gotta save that one for later because that's special. I don't usually come across that kind of evil too often. Okay, all the time. But I mean, that he went above and beyond the call of being a scumbag for that one. Oh, well, they thought it was only going to be stuck up there for a couple of weeks. That's why they put the fuel pools on top of the buildings. That's the most ludicrous assertion. That was David Lockbroom, the Director of Nuclear Safety Programs at the Union of Concerned Scientists. And whenever they put out a story, they show up on the very top of the first page of Google search, right? I think I'm allergic to nuclear scientists. Is that possible? Don't worry. The good public, money, career, and prestige. Does the nuclear career weigh more? Yes. Oh, yeah. You have no idea. The good news is that at least some of the spent fuel rods from Fukushima have already been shipped elsewhere for safer dry cask storage. That wasn't true, now was it? Thus, the vulnerable pools weren't filled to capacity, says Lockbroom. Hey, look over there. I fooled you, didn't we? That's David, the monster, Lockbroom. The head of nuclear security at the Union of Unconcerned Scientists. Have we ever covered a story from the Union of Concerned Scientists that wasn't just scumbaggery? The bad news is that enough fuel rods remain in the pool that if exposed to air for a long period of time, it is theoretically possible they could burn and melt into a pile of fissile rubble dense enough to restart a nuclear chain reaction. There's very few people that invoke the contempt that I have right now. David Brummel is definitely at the head of that. So he would have known on the 18th, he would have seen all of this. The Union of Unconcerned Scientists, the head of the nuclear, was following Fukushima closely. He would have known that, see? Right? He would have known that. So they're still at a level 4 at this point, going to move to a level 5. Can you imagine how sadistic you got to be? Like, you got all these buildings, and you knew this on the 15th of March, and you're only going to give that a level 4 rating. What's the point of having these designations if the industry is, like, this is some ugly friggin' stuff we're talking about. These people, what they have done, how can you ever forgive them for that? How can we look past this? How can we not be looking for revenge for what they got done to you? Why would you? Why wouldn't you want to hold them accountable? How come you don't want to hold them accountable? Shouldn't all those people in those key positions that come out and betrayed you lose everything, their pensions, their degrees immediately, and face criminal charges? How are you going to move on without that? Why would you move on without that? What do I got going on here? It kicked Nuclear's ass week this week. There's 3 shows where we got over the 2-hour mark, isn't it? Hot diggity damn, I done it again. Son of a gun. Should I try to finish this story? Because it's a long story. I'm not going to get through it. Well, I'm not going to get through it. You're not going to get through it. That's all we can do, right? I have to put that in my pile for some other time, unfortunately. There's no way I'm going to get through all of it. That's the way it goes around here. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. What the hell have I got down here? Oh, that's right too. I got a pile. It's called Not Done. Oh my God. A pretty big pile. That's piled up over there, and another pile we'll never get to probably. It's gone in the black hole. That pile, though, I do believe I'll get to it. That pile will definitely get to it. Sadistic demons. Alrighty. So, is the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on Earth and the 8 million species? It was originally, is the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency a curse on humanity and the 8 million species? I thought I should focus more on Earth, so that's why I framed the narrative that way. Let's play a closing song tonight. What's our closing song going to be? James got another one there we haven't heard. Consequences of the Melted Mox. It's a really good song. I like this a lot. Let's go for that one. We'll call it a night. I'll come back in and close the poll down after. I have a little ritual. What I do is I stop the video, no audio. Go in and make sure I'm set on 1080. Look, I was on 360. That's cool. Now we're on 1080. Oops, I gotta get volume in there. We'll see everybody on the next show. I'm not sure if I'm back tomorrow night. I'm pretty burnt out. I probably will be, but I pushed it hard for these 3 days because of the anniversary. And I don't even feel like I put a dent into it. I got so much there. I'm going to adjust your volume. I'm going to come and close the poll down after. So make sure, if you didn't give me a vote and a thumbs up, there's a great opportunity. I'm going to adjust the volume for you in real time. Away we go.
No reactors left to cool. Fuel sank deep, broke every rule. Pressure climbed, containment failed. Corium heat, the warning trailed. Mox never meant to burn. Now the ocean takes its turn. Buried deep. exits, but no one knows. Mass starvation along the coast, Fukushima crisis, no one's close. The ocean is silent, nothing alive. 3,000 miles, no signs of life. Melted much corrodes the sky. Melted much corrodes the mind. Melted much, the clocks don't change. Melted much, the world looks strange. Melted much, the air won't clear. Melted much for thousands of years. Melted much, no warning sound. Melted much, it's underground. Birth defects rise, no one connects. Fukushima event still infects. Seabirds gone, the beach is bare. Insects vanish from the air. Birth rates drop, no swarms take flight. Forests catch fire without a fight. Soil microbes lost, the roots collapse. No fungal threads to bring them back. Rain turns acid, clouds dissolve. Carbon lingers, heat evolves. Mass mortality events, ecosystems crash. Scientists puzzled, yet nothing's asked. The contamination progress substantial. Public exposure levels nominal.